which quantify things on that's great to start with. That's a good fault detecting. Exactly, yeah. Proper,
Good morning, everyone. My name is Igor Munteanu. I'm administrative chair of the administrative board at the IDIS. I'm very pleased to welcome you all for this event. And first of all, I would like to make a compliment to our team from Latvia, from the Embassy of Latvia, but also a large team of diplomats and experts coming from Riga. And also a large team of the Baltic diplomats attending this event. We are very much happy to host you at Denisa-Liepniece, and first of all say congratulations to the very important event that we are celebrating today, 100 years from the Independence Day of the Latvian Republic. You deserve a lot of compliments and congratulations from our side. You did quite an important accomplishment. You created a state that is vital for the prosperity of the Latvian people, and we look with a little bit of envy, but also with admiration to what you are doing in Latvia. Happy also to engage with this important event dedicated to the comprehensive approach in countering disinformation. because it is one of the assets of the resilient states. What is resilient in a very complicated and turbulent age is quite an important question mark, but also a response from those institutions and states that have to respond to the growing insecurities throughout the world and throughout our region. We have an important team of experts from the Moldovan and Latvian side today, and we are going to address the issue of insecurity in the informational space, but also in other fields for building up resilient institutions. I have to say that from the very beginning that Moldova is literally overflooded by propaganda disinformation, and not from yesterday, but for a very long period of time. We have adopted some of the laws that will be discussed today, but we have not progressed fundamentally or essentially in the way to settle, to resolve, or to match the challenges. We are going to address all these issues in a cooperative and interactive way. I think everyone has to win from this conversation today, from our exchanges of views, from probably some of the, complementary experiences that will be shared with you today along the seminar. But first of all, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Kristaps Purmalis, Chargé of the Latvian Embassy, which will probably make the introductory remarks on behalf of his diplomatic team.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear media representatives, communication experts, and dear Moldovan partners. I would like to start giving one insight that probably we are all aware of, that today no country can feel fully secured or protected from malicious external influences. And our information environments, I would say, are exposed to manipulation by both state and non-state actors who employ a myriad of different means and tactics. And despite ongoing efforts, our societies and governments are still not sufficiently adept to expose and respond to all these kinds of threats. This year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Latvia. And 100 years ago, the Republic of Latvia was established on the principles of democracy and freedom. And among them, the freedom of speech and free media. As these questions are of great importance also nowadays, we are open to learn and share our knowledge and our experience. Today we gathered here to hold fruitful discussion and then, I hope, engage in meaningful brainstorming, trying to find the most appropriate ways to counter disinformation. And at the time when there is the crucial pre-election period at the doorstep here in the Republic of Moldova. As you maybe are aware, we prepared for our parliamentary elections in Latvia just a month ago. And even some time before these elections, we put coordination structures in place and worked closely with media and civil society to raise awareness and to be prepared for potential external attempts to influence the electoral process. Regarding the media environment throughout the election campaigns, I would say so, I'm glad that the responsible Latvian institutions, especially together with the media community and the civil society organizations, ensured that our democratic process was protected from hostile meddling. But nevertheless, that does not mean that there were no threats or any risks. When responding to disinformation, we see strengthening resilience as the key approach. We focus on raising awareness in the society, in the public administration, and media, of course, as well as increasing media literacy. Also, we strengthen the media environment by fostering independent and pluralistic media and journalism as a whole. Our approach is all-inclusive, as the government works together with civil society organizations and the media community. Today, here, we as the partners of Moldova would like to share our best practices and to find out what we can learn from each other, because the situation in Latvia and in Moldova, while significantly different, also bears many similarities. And that can provide valuable insights and case studies to tackle further common challenges. If I may use this opportunity, I would like to mention that almost 2 months ago in Warsaw, our colleagues from the Latvian permanent representation in OSCE, together with the colleagues from Sweden, Germany, Canada, co-hosted an event on the sidelines of the OSCE Human Dimension Implementation meeting. And this event was dedicated especially to the strengths and gaps of independent media in Eastern Partnership countries. But at the event, the case study was the Republic of Moldova. And today, our experts present here have came for a purpose, because the Baltic Media Center of Excellence has a long-standing cooperation with Moldovan partners, and this year even has been published a new research on the needs of independent Russian language media in the Republic of Moldova. I guess I will stop here and let my colleagues introduce a little bit more, but before that I really want to thank you all for being here today with us at this event, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to IDIS Vitoru, not only to co-hosting this event, but really to expressing their interest. So thank you, Mr. Igor Munteanu. Of course, thank you, Mr. Rosian and Vasiloi, and giving the floor.
Thank you very much, Kristaps. In addition to the outstanding urban culture that defines exactly Latvia, and also a vibrant ethno-cultural identity, Latvia is renowned and famous for its media center, and we have a representative of the Baltic Center for Media Excellence, which is one of the most prominent centers of this kind in the Baltic sphere. Therefore, I would like to invite.
My name is Mārtiņš Mūrnieks, and we are together today with Solvita Denisa-Liepniece, representing the Baltic Center for Media Excellence. And thanks to this event, I had also opportunity to spend a couple of more extra days here in Moldova, meeting with stakeholders from different sectors, those who work with media-related issues, and in a way continuing what already previous speakers told. I also learned a lot, the things which are similar, at the same time things which are different between those countries and those regions. But there is something in common which thinks that puts a good ground why this type of events and also other type of events should be held and also enhanced in the future, that there is awareness of the risks, what exactly the disinformation and processes around it impose to the sustainability of democratic systems in the long term. Of course, this awareness differs from different sectors and groups of professionals and people. This what we would like also I will touch upon later on the second session in my presentation. But this is a good beginning. And also I'm particularly happy for this good beginning because the Center recently launched the Eastern Partnership Program, which is very much about being a platform for enhancing efficiency of different actors, media developers, donors and other actors for the greater impact of what they do. And I said that I'm happy about this, that the program got launched because from these meetings a couple of days ago and also today, it will set a good ground for already continuation and very concrete activities what our center, which is based in Riga, together with future partners from here will be able to do. I think at this point I should stop and let others run the show. Thank you.
Okay, officially, Mārtiņš, thank you very much. Officially, good morning, as I was just invited to start running the show. So, my name is Kārlis Bukovskis. I am researcher and the Deputy Director of the Latvian Institute of International Affairs, which is a Latvian counterpart of IDIS. In this case, I was personally, at least this event made me personally realize and find out that our director, Professor Spruits, has a long-standing relationship with your institute.
We will reveal this kind of information very soon.
Good, because this is basically, even before the start of this event, I already started learning new facts. So, I'm also a lecturer at two Latvian universities, Riga University and Graduate School of Law, and my prime field of expertise is European Union affairs and relations with the neighboring countries. Today we're going to have a discussion. We have an excellent panel, so I'm not going to go much into debating what we're going to be debating, not to bore you, because I have such a wonderful situation that the panelists are very experienced, very knowledgeable. So in this case, my main goal is to leave as much as time and space and room for them to discuss. But today we're going to discuss the media environment. We're going to address the challenges of the modern media environment from the point of view of media literacy, and also the question of propaganda in the second panel. And we all have to take into account, I guess, the upcoming national elections of Moldova next year. And so in this case, if we could be identifying some vulnerabilities already now, which country could be facing, also based on the, as previously mentioned, on the Latvian experiences with our elections just less than what is it today? It's the 8th, so 1 month and 2 days ago. And so in this case, let's see if we can learn something from the Latvian experiences. On a couple of practical notes, we are being streamed live, but I hope that will not prevent us to have an open and frank discussion. At least I'm hoping for. But I guess this takes the Chatham House aspect off the table. Nevertheless. When looking at the excellent panel that I have around myself, I have to give you a heads up and a warning. Please, your introductory words should be no longer than 10 minutes, okay? And I'm going to be giving you signs and warnings in advance, because in this case the whole premise, as Igor was mentioning in his introductory words, is to have it as interruptive as possible. And, or as Kristaps was saying, to have the brainstorming during the discussion. So in this case, I would immediately after your remarks, I would actually, you all finish your remarks, I would turn the chance for the audience to ask the questions and make the statements. With no further ado, I guess a couple of words on each of the excellent panelists that we have, but let's start with Solvita. Solvita Denisa-Liepniece. She's from the Baltic Center for Media Excellence. She's she's a doctor and she's an assistant professor at Vidzeme University of Applied Sciences. She's been a consultant on media literacy at the Baltic Center for Media Excellence. Has worked also on the projects for very many different think tanks, including Advanced Social and Political Research Institute, Center for East European Policy Studies, my own Latvian Institute of National Affairs, as well as NATO Stratcom Center of Excellence. If you could please, in 10 minutes, no longer than 10 minutes, just say what's your outlook on the situation. What would you say are the Latvian experiences maybe that we could apply also to Moldova?
Thank you for this introduction. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here. I have quite loud voice. I'll try. Okay. Let's put it somewhere here. No. It works. No. Okay, it works with you. Okay, let's put it here and I'll start to talk about challenges. Because I decided to be focused on challenges. We all are facing disinformation in our environment. We all know what propaganda means, and sometimes we are facing huge challenges when we try to understand how disinformation and propaganda will work in foreseeable future. So the first challenge I would like to address is the gap between Stratcom, media literacy, and media literacy as it is perceived by educators. Just 3 weeks ago, I was visiting a conference in Brussels. The main idea and the main topic of this conference was interference in elections. A lot of different threats around, a lot of different thoughts around, and only one silver bullet used by most probably every commissioner talking on this conference, and the silver bullet is media literacy and critical thinking. And of course, it was perceived as a logical way or a logical step how to make our environment better. But 2 weeks ago, I was attending and I was a participant on another kind of conference. It wasn't so political, it wasn't about strategic communication, it wasn't about resilience and deterrence. It was UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Conference in Lithuania, in Kaunas. And educators try to avoid using words or language, deterrence, resilience, and they are not ready to protect someone. They try to share idea that media education is not about protection. So I think that this is a huge problem. We developed how we try to decide this problem when we are facing educators. I work with teachers in Latvia, in Lithuania, and I see that their media literacy definitely is something different from media literacy I hear on Stratcom level events. How do we try to solve this problem with Baltic Center for Media Excellence? We developed an online platform called Full Thought, Pilna Doma, and we try to work with different target audiences. Our approach is to engage journalists, educators, Stratcom stakeholders, and to create teachers-friendly materials for activities, in-class activities, and for activities in your family when you can just find this online platform and to check some interesting ideas on propaganda, for example. What kind of literacy, and here I have a question, what kind of literacy do we need? And to solve problems like low political trust, and I think one very relevant problem for your region and for our region, nostalgia for Soviet time. The other one is integration of ethnic minorities or level of civic participation. The second challenge, media literacy against something or media literacy for something. And countering false information is mainly associated with Kremlin, and connecting the battle with disinformation with media literacy is used against media literacy. Government-backed media literacy activities sometimes are being associated with exclusively anti-Kremlin activities, and for me as for mentor it is very difficult to enter Russian language school with these ideas. So in other words, is it a good idea to use media literacy against Russia, or we need to use other tools how to make our society more motivated? We had a series of program Pure Facts with our Latvian public broadcaster with radio. The target audience of this project was adult people, seniors, and we discussed manipulative techniques previously discovered in our research papers on Kremlin, but we used health issues to find this, to show how influence works. And it was very, very useful not to talk only about Kremlin, but to show not only political marketing, but marketing itself, and to show influence activities. So, to sum up this challenge, maybe we need to create media literacy for smart decision making as a form. The third challenge I would like to address today is oversimplification of a problem, or in other words, fake news. And it took 2 years for the government of UK to decide not to use fake news anymore. And I think this is a good trend, and this is a very good idea, finally, not to use fake news and to speak about disinformation and misinformation. And when we are talking about misinformation and disinformation, we are talking about cognitive processes and not only about showing and verification information. So now we are entering the zone of not only fact checking, but primarily emotion checking. And are we ready to check our emotions or not? Are our journalists aware of this emotion checking? Because we all are being influenced, and influence itself is a very tricky issue. So, together with fake news, also media literacy became a buzzword, and we can see it even in Kremlin efforts to make their own media literacy against our media literacy. We need to increase the broad perspective of manipulation, and the core element how we can start is to find our vulnerabilities and vulnerabilities of our journalists. And here I would like to come back to this emotion check. So we need to understand how do we as journalists work with information, how we are being influenced, and then to move forward and to create stories for our audiences. And talking about the third challenge, I would like to talk about individual level. That's why media literacy or digital literacy or news literacy or journalism literacy, it definitely is not enough. And we need to talk about self-literacy. Self-literacy is on the individual level, and it is very close to everyone, and it means that no one can help you to become literated, only you can do it by yourself. And now I'm going to move to the fourth challenge. So this fourth challenge, as I see it, is global corporations like Google. They became, I don't know how it looks in your region, but in our region they became very supportive in media literacy activities on different levels, including technical support and the use of artificial intelligence. But at the same time, in my smartphone, I receive Google News alerts with news from Lithuania prepared by RIA Novosti, not prepared by local channels, and it is not a good sign for me. And I have only 2 minutes, so I'm moving to the fifth challenge, and the fifth challenge is about a hypothetical future. Era of deepfake is coming. By deepfake, I mean new audiovisual manipulations. For example, when you see pre-recorded video of politician X, and you can change his words simultaneously online. So I think it's a huge challenge for all of us, for our audiences, and it is a huge challenge for journalists. So it means that we need to develop cooperation with cyber experts who will help us to find if this video is real or not. And we have to prepare our audience by telling that these audio-visual fakes will be extremely powerful. So it will be very useful for us to develop this system of providing notes or maybe making it is visible that this one or another piece of information was made by video face swap, and that this Hollywood actually is coming to our news outlets.
Thank you.
10 minutes.
You still have 24 seconds.
24 seconds. So, qualitative journalism, not only education, but media literacy environment and emotion change.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to use the opportunity, and I'm going to ask you one question directly. You addressed very many challenges that we're facing. If I would ask you, which you think is the one main important, the one which is the most responsible one for media literacy? Would it be the question of self-literacy? Would it be family? Would it be school programs? Would it be government who is responsible? Would it be think tanks? Journalists themselves? Who is the one who is responsible? If you would have to answer in literally 2 words.
Only on individual level, but we as journalists we can help to every person around to understand that this media literacy is only their personal business. And governments can help definitely, and donors they can help. But this is the responsibility of every person to make these smart decisions. And these smart decisions are based on the idea that you understand how influence works.
Okay, thank you. With this, I turn to Corina. Corina Sepoy. Did I Chepoy. Sorry. I was afraid I'm going to butcher your name. Sorry. Chief of Party Internews in Moldova, has been also a project director and country director at Internews in Moldova and Kyrgyzstan as well. She founded the Chisinau School of Advanced Journalism at the Independent Journalism at the Independent Journalism Center in Moldova, yes. And you have been director there since 2002. You also have consulted very many international organizations, including World Bank, USAID, UNDP, Transparency International, European Union, and UNESCO. You have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you very much. So, this time in my capacity of Internews Chief of Party, I would like to tell you on a specific example how the framework set up is addressed in Moldova. We opened our shop more than a year ago, and that's why it's a good idea for us to draw a line now. We are lucky enough to be managing a project, a 5-year-long project with the help of USAID here in Moldova, and that is a true luxury because projects long like this one really helps implement activities but also see and monitor results. So I will draw a line based on our activities, but also on our partners' activities. We do partner with Freedom House in Moldova and with the Independent Journalism Center here. So one reminder to everyone, when we talk about internews approach, we're taking the high road in the propaganda war. So we don't respond with the same coin. We address this problem with activities and issues that are legal, that follow rule of law. We don't respond with counter-propaganda, of course. I will tell you about one activity that I particularly like, and that is referring to librarians in the Republic of Moldova. We worked with them last year, and we plan to continue working with them this year in terms of building their capacity and in the future. It's a huge network of 1,000 libraries around Moldova, and we're trying to use existing networks already established. This one was set up, for example, by IREX, and we will similarly work with youth banks of the East Europe Foundation and with others. So we go horizontally, as I call it. Another activity under this topics is the National Geographic Photo Camp in Soroca, here in Moldova. And this photo camp specifically produced real visual results, which we will take around the country in this year and next year. So people will be able to see how to tell stories about people and how to retell the truth and the reality of their lives, taking into account the minorities we have in Moldova and the issues we all face. We do have the partners activities, as I told you. So, for example, I can give you a partner activity supported by Centro Independent Journalism, Center for Independent Journalism. This is Moldova.org. You can see how we measure results as well, because every time we look at how we do it, we also put in numbers, views, shares, fact-checking, video materials, all that is counted and monitored, of course. Another activity that was supported by the Journalism Center was in the north of Moldova, Observatorul de Nord. It's a newspaper there, and they worked with their communities, having campaigns and other activities which have also innovative components, because that was the segment that the Journalism Center focused on. And then you might have heard about this NGO which is called Kalumea, and they started a project last year, Internetul Grăiește. So the Journalism Center worked with them, really experimenting to work with vloggers. So I'd support experimenting and trying to do new things. And the numbers are really overwhelming if you see how they did it. And now they are continuing to do that without the support of the Journalism Center. So they will be combating propaganda on a different platform using different segments. Our main component, and I think most successful one, is media literacy in schools. That's something you mentioned, educators, and I think this activity is the core activities, should be a core activity in terms of media literacy, because that is long term. People have manuals, they have books, they have teachers trained, and it's part of the official curricula of the Ministry of Education. It's an optional course that is approved and developed together with the ministry. So such a partnership, we're only glad to support that as part of our project with our partner, the Journalism Center. And that presents you already a start, a beginning of a map that is quite well covered, I think, for this 1 year that we've started to work, and previous years that the Journalism Center worked without our support. And in the future, we want to expand to level of lyceum, high school, so that future voters this year will start doing that actually, because our kids graduate when they are 18. They are properly informed and they are empowered with instruments to understand what is a fake information and what is a truthful one, when they can rely on facts, and how they can be safe online, which is important as well. More projects of the Journalism Center. For example, they have video tutorials, and they not only use them online, but they also promote them with the help of other people that promote media literacy. For example, you probably know about, I mean the Moldovan audience, Chronograph and their festivals and the going around the country. So what they do before showing a movie, they actually show video tutorials. And I think, again, people try to tap in what we have and spread it around the entire country. Educația Mediatică is a new portal that the Journalism Center started. That is a portal actually for parents, educators, and kids. So there you can find tutorials about what media is, for example, what is a stranger, but also to find masterclasses and other instruments and manuals to download and use. These are posters that the Journalism Center developed as part of a different project, but who will use them? And just looking at these posters, how do you think you could use them? That's a question for you guys. How would you use posters like these? Visual, really simple ones with simple information. Well, maybe you don't have ideas, but we do. So what we want to do this year, we want to actually use them in public transportation. We've seen that around the world, that Internews is doing that and placing it even on boats that connect communities, for example. So in our case, what is the most spread public transport that people use to move around? What do you think? Maršrutkas. Thank you. So what we will do, we'll place, actually Susan, you guys also answered, we will place these on the backs at the minibuses. So while the people commute from suburbs to Chisinau, they can actually read. We'll also have it added links, and we'll have added QR codes, so we can also monitor who read this information. More materials from the Journalism Center. This time you can see it. You can see how the press manipulates, which happens. Actually, not all of our press, but some does that. It's developed by the Journalism Center as part of our project. And Trolleys is an application that was developed and enhanced through our hackathons. And they have been selected as best and most innovative digital solution from Moldova in learning and education category by the World Summit Awards. So I think that's quite a good result for our project as well, and something to learn from, because this way you can actually mark a troll, and you can do that not only on your mobile nowadays, but also on all kind of platforms, different platforms. Freedom House is our important and very visible and how do I say that? Heavyweight partner, let's put it this way. And they mostly conduct legal work and self-regulatory work, but also through their, I'm finishing actually, it's my last partner, don't worry about it. But what we've seen with the activities that Freedom House conducts, they also contribute to media literacy through videos conducted as part of safe-play rating mechanisms and their partner, the Association of Independent Press, through discussion clubs conducted by their partner, the Association of Independent Press. So these are actually ways of tapping into partner activities as well. And that's why I really like the word comprehensive in the title of this event, because that's our approach as well. And we try to do it actually in a practical way. More grantees of Freedom House, you can see the examples of their projects. Some of them are quite innovative. For example, Moldova.org used a network of volunteer pensioners. People said that they are getting bored, and they simply go around and speak to other pensioners. They have activities in centers for elderly people, for example, and they love it. They do it pro bono because it's an occupation. These are people that want to stay active and do something interesting. You see Newsmaker got involved in this, and they have a very interesting game online, also part of it. It's co-funded by another donor. But here you can have fun activities, do posters as well, and cover pretty much a lot of efforts. We also have Freedom House policy briefs under Media Forward. I would also encourage you, by the way, to submit ideas for these policy briefs, because they're quite high level and very visible. One of these policy briefs we're covering specifically media literacy. And that's it.
Thank you, wonderful. Thank you very much. You saved us another 7 seconds. So I have, you made me think actually, and I had a question in mind all the time, because you explained very many instruments how to manage the media literacy question. But I have a rather philosophical question tied to that, because as being a political scientist, I'm always wondering, isn't media literacy question tied to the political literacy question? So in this, the whole premise would be that people don't necessarily always understand the news because they don't know the political processes exactly. They don't fully understand what which institution is doing. And so in this case, addressing this intrinsic educational problem is with maršrutkas enough? Is that this is, because it's a very good solution, it's an excellent solution, but in this case, is that enough?
Definitely not. That's why a lot of other things are done, both horizontally, as we're studying with the ministry and the government, and vertically, and horizontally with the existing networks of youth organizations, elderly people, NGOs, or let's say librarians. So I think the efforts should be coordinated across lines in terms of official work and working with official institutions, but also across NGO informal networks, informal ones as well. So I would say I would never go for a maršrutka project by itself, because this is only to strengthen the other efforts that we have and to spread the information among those people that might not see the TV or might not access newsmaker or might not have a course in school because they're older, let's put it this way. So, but your first part of the question in terms of political processes and awareness and education of people, it's part still of the education system in general. And we do have civic education courses that help to, with that. We also have other organizations that focus on political processes and work with grassroots organizations. So definitely this is complementary, I agree with you.
Thank you, thank you. Actually, on the schooling program, you said that those are optional courses. I was just wondering, maybe
yes,
those
let me
should
tell
be
you the trick
mandatory.
about that. It's an optional course, but because of the support we provide to teachers, there are manuals, there are teacher training courses. They are part of the Journalist Center does that. Actually, teachers prefer to elect that specific course because they have enough support to conduct it. So I think that's the entry point. When you give enough support to the teachers, you actually end up having more schools accepting the course. And I hope, again, the map we have this year will be covered completely next year with courses, because I truly believe, I have to tell you another story, a personal one. My son, by accident, ended up in a school like that, and now whenever he asks me my opinion, he also asks me to make arguments to my opinion. Argumentează, mama, in Romanian this sounds perfect. Argumentează. So I understand the impact of this course is quite good.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. We have to now turn to Dr. Igor Munteanu, Chair of the Administrative Board of IDIS. You also teach at the Academy of Economic Studies in Moldova on public policy, discourse, and European Union institutions. You have been ambassador of Moldova to the United States, to Canada, and also to Mexico, and you have worked also as a freelance political analyst for the Radio Free Europe, and have been a political advisor a long time ago for the first president of Moldova. Nevertheless, in spite of everything that I was just mentioning in your excellent credentials, you only have 10 minutes.
I'm very happy to wear a straight jacket, which is kind of a free shot for everyone at this panel. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this panel. I learned a lot from the tricks that you have just communicated to us from different projects and experiences that you are implementing in Moldova. What I would like to add to the panel is that in addition to the outstanding projects that we are running, we have to look at the policies of the state. We have to contextualize what exactly we are doing in the field of countering disinformation. Because if there is no will to change the policy of the state, so it's very difficult to reach out to those who are daily brainwashed by foreign media and also by domestic media. I would add to the general, let's say, landscape of issues you have already touched on, the domestic propaganda, which is quite important. But I will start with three levels of influence that we have to consider. First of all is influence by strategic domination. That means economical culture, frozen conflicts, or by proxies. This is something that is not exactly related strictly with disinformation propaganda, but it creates a context for political and let's say, strategical domination. The second is influenced by rising illegal regimes. Because some of our former metropola, and still people believe they are metropola in our region, they love to work with autocrats, love to work with nationalists, populists, kleptocrats, as a form of political culture. And influenced by cultural soft power is the third factor. What means soft power, let's say, developed by the Russian state is exactly the global Russian TV networks, pro-Soviet nostalgics like wolves and every other groups which are very actively involved in the geopolitical games of the Russian Federation. I have to say that, let's say, mentioning these factors doesn't mean that a country, that Russia is implementing a kind of rigid formula. No, the formula that is, let's say, applied by the Russian Federation is very situational. It's up to the local context, it's up to the vulnerabilities of a given country, it is up to the resources Russia has in our countries. So everything is situational based on local triggers. What does it mean trigger? It may mean a frozen conflict, which is a key to lock the doors for some countries like Moldova to be more active in the integration with the European Union. A trigger may be nationalist groups of Russian speakers, which can have a very active role in simply toxifying the atmosphere for internal domestic discussions. And Kremlin is using outside capabilities to achieve its geopolitical aims in Europe by using the kind of 4D strategy: dismiss, distort, distract, and dismay. It operates like, I'm using this metaphor as an helicopter, as a chart, with flares launched by helicopters to counter potential attacks with rockets based on thermic traps. Implementation of this sort of strategy is assigned by state media that often calls objective journalism a fake. And I mentioned here Kiselyov's statement saying that there is the objectivity is a myth. Or that Russia today is playing the role of the Ministry of Defense. This is exactly the statement of Margarita Simonyan. Considering this kind of understanding or philosophical elements of what exactly Russia perceives instrumentally to be media, we have to consider what is the influence of Russian media in our country. And then, of course, what aboutism? It's a very strange terminology, but it is, what does it mean? What aboutism means that if you criticize Russia, you get a response that, well, what about the black-collar population in your state? If you criticize the embargo, you say, but what about the fact that the European Union is so, let's say, offensive in relationship with Russian interests, etc. So, of course, these are the elements of something that is provided and is promoted by media. Russian soft power is based on denial of facts. And I will go back to the occupation of the Crimean Peninsula. First of all, one of the strategists for Donbass is Mr. Surkov. And Surkov is famous for its the concept of unreality and the Kiselyov idea about the war-fighting media. You may remember that when everything started in Crimea, Kremlin disputed the idea that it has any kind of military presence in the region and say that, well, there are some soldiers in their vacation over there, but there is no any kind of occupation, no any kind of plans, etc. No war was taking place, and that was justified by official media. In February 24, 2014, Putin lied with purpose, saying that we have not the intention of rattling the saber and sending troops to Crimea. So the ideology of the Russian state media is to deny the facts on the ground and to create parallel realities. And this is exactly the content, the substance of the propaganda. Putin chose to mock reporters who noted the basic facts on the ground. There is an accumulation of military troops in Crimea. There is a kind of recruitment of the new soldiers from Rostov, etc. In March 2014, he asserted that Russian soldiers were local Ukrainian citizens who had purchased their uniforms in the local stores, you may remember. And this denial of simple facts has created a very powerful strategy to occupy the minds of the population in Ukraine with something that was not factual and based on evidences. What is about Russian propaganda in Moldova? Facts. 40% of the population in Moldova prefer to check and verify and inform themselves through the Russian language media. This is both 2017. 40%. 75%, sorry for the mistake, of all Christian Orthodox parishes affiliated with the Metropoly of Moldova, which is under Russian Patriarchy. Rebroadcasting from Russia, TV and the radio channels continue to dominate media market. It's about 80% of the video content that is purchased from Russia. So it is produced largely in Russia, and afterwards it's rebroadcasted through the channels owned by important oligarchs in Moldova. And I mean oligarchs affiliated to the Democratic Party group and affiliated to the Socialist Party group. Altogether, they cover 80% of the media in Moldova. And what is extremely important is one study that was made by IPRE, which underscores that from 652 references, out of which 308 belonging to Sputnik, Sputnik was leading in the manipulative news. And of course, we have professional reporters that will provide you additional sources of that. But we can see a kind of specialization of the state-related media of Russian language in denying the facts, in promoting the agenda of the Russian Federation, and creating a distorted view on what exactly are the aims of Moldova. Just a couple of elements. Propaganda succeeds when it is tolerated. What does it mean in Moldova? When you look through the last 6 years, the National Coordination Council for Broadcasting is providing regular reports on some of the propaganda machineries and tricks. And usually they warn TV channels not to do the way. But when they warn the same TV channels repeatedly, several times, 5, 10 times, and there is no any other punishment for what they are doing wrong, that means the toleration of the obvious propaganda. And if you look in the last 10 years, only one TV channel from Russia has been suspended, TV24. The rest are protected in political terms because it is affiliated with some political groups, or it is seen as not a, let's say, serious threat. But the threats are quite important. 2 elements: doorkeepers. Doorkeepers, in terms of the national informational space, means regulators that do not do their job. And proxies are those that facilitate Russian media networks to enter into the houses of the Moldovan citizens.
Thank you, Igor. No, it's wonderful. We're very much on time. I have. Thank you very much for your presentation, because actually it made me think, because to some extent, or to a large extent actually, this Russian media space, so to speak, that the Kremlin has been creating, it's not only, so to speak, lying about situations. It's actually what they have done is a comprehensive alternative discourse on things, because it actually, every new lie fits into the previous discourse, into the previous understanding of how things are going. And in this case, as you started with and ended with addressing the TV channels and the role of TV channels, there's one thing which I actually want to ask you to comment on, because this is what we have also discussing in Riga, is that it's not only about the news channels or analytical, political shows. It's also about just the comedy shows. It's about entertainment,
Yeah.
which actually has jokes. It's infiltrated with jokes. One of the examples. It's extremely comedy club. It's very popular. And occasionally there are just some punches to the United States, some punches to Europe, something which in this case fits into the whole, again, this general discourse. Do you think the prohibition of TV channels, prohibition of programming, censoring something out of the jokes, out of the programs which are being pre-recorded?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm sorry that I cannot, let's say, develop the key messages further on because of the time constraint. First of all, I'm not the proponent of stopping or banning something. I'm the proponent of replacing something with additional content. And one of the problems of the media landscape in Moldova is that independent media does not have, I don't know if they will have, sufficient resources to compensate what the Russians are spreading and broadcasting in Moldova. And lack of resources make them to be extremely dependent on the content they are receiving. And the editorial policy of those who own the channels is simply to broadcast something that will bring viewers and consumers. As long as we will not treat disinformation and propaganda as a serious strategical threat for the national security, we will not get any further on in unlocking the door for independent media and for enabling the citizenship to decide on their own. Unfortunately, the media market is totally controlled by Casa media in Moldova. That means about 75% of all the advertising money they're going one-to-one influence group. Grants cover usually education. This is good, but this is not exactly, it will not replace the Russian content. And you are very, very right in pointing out to the infotainment that is entering into every house and changing the mindset of the population into the key messages that is favorable to the Russian interest.
Just a word, definitely we are not proponents of that, just like this across content, across channels, because, for example, with the latest addition to our legislation, we have no Al Jazeera, because they're not signing the same EU legislation that Russians are not signing. But not only that, I think we lack due process. And we were talking the other day about the fact that, EU legislation is not that good because you have to follow a lot of legal constraints. You cannot just ban things. I think we should all follow the same path and ban things only legally in due process and take people to court. Same as in your region was done. People took Russian channels to court because of specific legislation issues and issues of hate speech, issue of instigation to violence, those that already are in our legislation. We could do the same, but it's difficult and it takes time. So what is the easier path? You just ban. So that's not feasible either. And there is, by the way, funding for content, but it's very short term, and I don't think it's
unsustainable.
Yes, it's not sustainable.
And also, very important element, we all see a kind of gap between the laws adopted in Moldova and the implementation of the laws. This is one of the most important elements which feeds frustration. We have adopted a law on countering disinformation, but the law is not implemented in Gagauzia, for instance, and nobody cares about how the law will be implemented in the future in Gagauzia, and it is somehow protected from the rest of the national space of Moldova, and this is produces one harm to the national interest of Moldova.
Okay, thank you, thank you. As a moderator, I always love to see the people are already discussing things, but
We see you enjoy that role, yeah.
and I'm now turning to Lilia Zakharia and
Change.
not only because my neck is already stiff by just looking over time to the right side, I'm happy to turn to the left one as well. You're a journalist at StopFals.md, and you graduated from the faculty of letters from school. They got your master's studies at did your master's studies in journalism at State Communication and
journalism.
you graduated in journalism from the State University from Chisinau. And you're a journalist of the Association of Independent Press and on the website of Moldova for Latvian and StopFals.md. Lilia, you have a presentation, wonderful. I want to ask you something. No, okay. So my neck is still suffering. Lilia, there is, when I was looking at your webpage, one thing which caught my attention, and therefore I want to immediately start with that. Of course, I don't know that you probably going to address it in your presentation anyways, is that there was an article on which to my extent looked like multi-level fake news, because it was about European Commission prohibiting Moldovan wine. So it went in two levels, because the European Commission, first of all, the lie of prohibiting the Romanian wine, and that would apply also to Moldova as well. That was one of the articles. It actually struck me as a very peculiar situation. How this information space, how this issue is being developed, and again, in context of media literacy, this is how to even address that. But anyways, your presentation is ahead of us. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I am from Association of Independent Press, and I am working there for 7 years. And for 2 years, I am involved in StopFals campaign in which we try to debunk fake news, misinformation and disinformation. And also we have some media literacy activities. I will present you some examples, some disinformation and misinformation news which are debunked by our team. But our team is me and my colleague. We are two persons. And we try to fight with a big machinery of propaganda and disinformation. And I will give some messages or the key messages or narratives which are spread through media and also through social media. And for 2 years, I observed or I see that there are two reasons of the spreading of this misinformation and the disinformation. The first reason is for material reason and also for political reasons. These are the main messages against EU, against sexual minorities, refugees from Syria or Saudi invade European Union or Moldova, European Union supports Russia actions in Syria, NATO or USA are responsible for military conflicts, market from the Russian Federation versus market from the European Union and the USA. There are some messages which are against Romania, and there are many articles in which opposite parties or opposite leaders are put in negative context. And here I will give some examples. The first example is in this text that from May in this year, people from Europe couldn't take photo, and this is a fake news, because there is a European Union regulation, but for the I forget to speak about this. In this text, it is said that from the May, journalists and photographs will not be permitted to take photo in the public area, But in the European Union, it is such a regulation, but especially for journalists and for artists as photographs, there is such point that the journalists and photographers can use this photo in a public area if they are in their duties. Another message also against the EU is that people, audience might vote to go in Europe in May last year because if they go in Madrid, Spain, they might be infected with hepatitis A, which is spread among sexual minorities. This is also fake news. Another message is about the conflict from Ukraine, and we debunk this misinformation, which are spread in pro-Kremlin media that in Slovak Republic will appear yes, a trade chamber, which will be trade chamber which will link the European Union and Crimea. Also, this is a fake disinformation. A fresh fake news is that in Netherlands will be taken children of people who don't tolerate sexual minorities. Also is a misinformation. Then the sexual minorities issues is spread periodically through pro-Kremlin media. And another fresh, let's say, fake news is that the refugees from Syria or Saudi are invade the European Union or Moldova, and is a fake news last year spread in our pro-Kremlin media especially. Another issue or message which is spread that European Union officials or USA officials supports Russia actions in Syria, and this text was about the Angela Merkel. Another message is that market from the Russian Federation are better than those from European Union and USA. And in this reportage broadcast by pro-Kremlin Russian TV station, is said that wooden gun and Russian doll matryoshka is better than European toys, because wooden gun develop paternal instincts, but matryoshka develop maternal instincts. And there are such detailed examples which are how are increased these feelings. Because in our country are a lot of Moldovians which has double citizenship, also Romania citizenship. We have many texts or fake news which disinforms and which are put against Romania. And a fresh also fake news is about the number of Moldovan citizenship which require Romanian citizenship decreased in last years, which is a disinformation. Another text is about also against Romania, and as I said, a message, yes. a message which is spread, especially in the election period, are based on opposition defaming, and this text was shared in this summer when in Chisinau was local elections. Also, we have, unfortunately, a lot of fake websites which shared and spread fake news for views. What are the signs or the symptoms for us, for journalists to touch, let's see, fake news or false news? We think that it is a fake or a false news, misinformation or disinformation, a news. It does not show facts, but speculation. It doesn't have sources or doesn't indicate clearly where does the offer or offers have know that these facts are true. In many disinformation texts are journalists' opinion. Also, we have texts in which the title is not related with the content of this text. And also we have texts in which relates the conflict situation and doesn't represent both sides. And especially these websites or these, let's say, websites which spread this disinformation haven't any contacts, journalist contacts or mail address. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I have yet another philosophical question which I wanted to ask. I actually was wondering about it, and I think you're the perfect person to ask it to. So I was always wondering, internet is a new technology, right? So it's relatively new. And so in this case, as with every new technology, it's in its very core and its very original premise, it's very often has been abused. Well, it's not only about the invention of printing, it's not only about the invention of publishing or whatever else the information spreading instruments that have been in history. So in this case, the concept of the internet portals and social media are also abused. And I was wondering what could be the solutions, and learning from the experiences how we have been dealing with the newspapers and with TV and radio media. So maybe in this case, how do you think if we would start labeling internet sources, so to speak, that are just putting that this is the one which is a proper one. They check the facts. This is investigative journalism. This is good. If they don't have this label on them, then in that case, it's you automatically. And so lighten the task that needs to be performed by the person. What would be your comment? I think Karina is also willing, but really, please.
We think that we, as journalists from StopFals or from Association Independent Press, we think that the main activity of our job is to develop critical thinking of citizens, of audience. That's why at the StopFals.md we have such a list with websites which spread this fake news, and we try to give these lists to journalists, to people, to see what are the let's say what are the main messages, what are the main websites, what are the main topics which wash brains to audience. We have such list of websites, but also, as I said, the critical thinking is very important also for TV shows, for radio, for print, and also in online, because online environment is very, very dangerous, even in election period.
I have just one side note to add. I did not talk about this in my presentation, but as a result of the hackathon, because it's not a result yet, there is a project which wants to build a widget, I think it's called, that is, you download it on your computer and then it shows you which sites you enter are trustworthy, it has a label, and which are not. And it's based actually on the basic information from you guys.
Yes.
But the technical solution was invented by this IT journalist group, and they will actually find a solution for that, and it can be used by other countries as well. Because the monitoring we have hardcore data that StopFals conducted throughout the years, and we know exactly who's conducting fake information.
And one should remark concerning cyber attacks on reliable sources. So be aware that it is also possible. It is also possible to post some disinformation on a very, very reliable source. So it is very useful to remind it to your audiences and to journalists.
If anyone in Moldova has a problem like that, there is a regional project that helps media outlets to increase the digital safety of their platforms, by the way.
I think it's very important to be a cooperation between journalists and the cyber specialists, because we, as I said, we bank fake news with journalistic tools. That's why this cooperation will be important for our audience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I took the microphone just to let it show. To widen the discussion so that it doesn't include only 4 of us. Please, colleagues, we have still 13 minutes. If you could, wonderful. My suggestion is that we collect 2-3 questions at once and then just let the panelists answer them. And also, if I may kindly ask, just if you could state your institution or name or please, we'll start with you and then we'll go.
Thank you. My name is Vasiloi from community WatchDogs.md. I don't have a proper question. It's more to complete the presentation of colleagues. It's about the entertainment that is being rebroadcasted by our local TV station, owned by Mr. Plahotniuk or by Mr. Dodon. And it is not just about, the problem is not just that this content is cheap. The problem is that this content is illegally cheap. Because it is not an open market from Terve Canal that make an open contest. Oh, look, we are making a contest in Moldova. We want to sell our product to Moldova, and any local TV station can participate and buy it. Yeah, this is about corruption, because Mr. Plahotniuk is paying